Relying on your paycheck is not enough.
He pitched a brokerage without brokers in 2016. And gotta know, years later, Ahmad Hammouda built it anyway.
More than 50% of the US population invests in the capital market, and only 0.5% of the Egyptians.
0.5%. Oh my God. Today, Thndr is Egypt's biggest brokerage, downloaded more than 5.5 million times, and just got named the fastest growing company in Africa. 2021, Thndr's annual revenue was $120,000. By 2024, 3 years later, it was $8 million.
We are light years behind, but I'm obsessed with this idea that we have what it takes to catch up.
Ahmed turned a rejection into a revolution and is now rewriting how a region thinks about risk and money.
Founding a startup should never be your goal.
Wow. Just kick us off by walking us through what Thndr is, this company you co-founded, and the importance of having a platform like this in Egypt.
So Thndr is basically a platform that will help you to invest your money. So it's very, very simple. With the current economic challenges right now, relying on your paycheck is not enough. Accordingly, our job is to give you other means that can help you make more money, whether through investing in the capital market, in the stock markets, in Egypt now, investing in gold, in money market funds, so that you make more money and you are closer to the life you aspire to live.
In 2023, Egypt had a financial crisis. The value of the Egyptian pound dropped. People saw the money in their bank accounts losing value in real time. It was a very scary time for so many people in the country. And a lot of these people didn't have their money put anywhere else. Was this actually a window of opportunity for Thndr?
If I go back to 2019, I had so much conviction that Thndr is going to work. And I had so much belief in local investment products and that everyday individuals are ready to invest in those local investment products. And everyone was very skeptical about it. But I had so much conviction. And when I look back, Thndr worked. But interestingly enough, nothing from what I thought would result into Thndr working happened.
Okay.
And other things. During the first 3 years, like 2021, 2022, we call it internally, this is the period where look down, build, faith is up. We know that our region deserves this. Numbers are really not picking up, which is the most, it's actually the period that I'm proud of because it is the period where our belief was actually put into test. Comes 2023, and then very valuable lessons for us. So one, and I've heard this from one of my investors, is markets go up and down. It would be a very immature way of thinking is to follow a trough or to follow a hype. If you believe in the fundamentals of what you're doing, you keep working. This is one. Two, and we always say this, and back to your point, if we had spent 50 years telling Egyptians that putting your money in CDs in the bank is not the safe haven, and diversification is the right way to do it. And when it comes to your investing, it's not like choosing a club to cheer for. It's actually more like the national team. It has to have representation from all the available investments.
I like
we
that
wouldn't have
analogy.
succeeded. But what happened in 2023 is, to your point, Egyptians started looking for ways to preserve the value of their money.
So you previously pitched this idea to your former bosses in 2016 when you were in investment banking, but they kind of rejected it and they weren't convinced that there could be a brokerage without brokers. What did that rejection teach you? Was it something negative or positive in the end? And how can other founders learn from that experience?
The story is, so I was actually working on the sale of the investment bank I used to work at. And then I found out about Robinhood in the US and this idea of making it easy for individuals. And again, you asked me about what Thndr is. If you think about it, for years and years, grade A investment service was only exclusive to high net worth. Right? And then what Robinhood and other global platforms started doing is, why don't we make this more accessible to the everyday individual? So I found about this, and then I went to the CEO, and for me it would add to the value and the valuation of the company that we're selling. Why not we add a digital platform? And interesting enough, the CEO loved it. But then he called the head of the brokerage arm And he is the one who hated it. And I think if you are so in deep of how things are being done, the most difficult part would be how can I take a step back and think of doing things different. For me, this was entrepreneurship. Like I had an idea, I had the space to talk to our CEO back then. If he would have accepted it, I would gladly work on it within this investment bank, and hopefully would had the same impact. But it meant that if I'm really serious about this, because it became more than an idea, and you get to see the problem. Like I got to see firsthand, all of this investment bank is serving one type of clients who are not my friends, who are not the people I meet with, which are the everyday individuals. So I had so many rejections afterwards, but I wouldn't call this a rejection. I would call this me being all in within my company, and I would have loved to do it within CI Capital.
So on the topic of that obsession, you've talked about being obsessed with solving this problem of investment in the region and getting more people in the region access to retail investment. What was the moment you knew it was worth that risk to build this company?
I think the moment is when I realized, or when I got this piece of information, that more than 50% of the US population invests in the capital market, and only 0.5% of the Egyptians invest in the capital market.
5%. 0.5%. Oh my gosh. It's a huge population.
It's a huge population.
That's crazy, yeah.
And then if you tag to these two things, one, even in Egypt, the best way that you would have accumulated wealth would have been investing in the capital markets. And we can talk about this study from 1998 to 2018. Only 0.5% have had this chance, and 99.5% were deprived from this chance. And one thing that I always say, I am a realistic person. I understand that we are, I would say, light years behind the US in terms of their technology and so on. But I'm obsessed with this idea that we have what it takes to catch up. And it's nothing would justify not being able to offer this service or this opportunity to our users in Egypt, in the UAE, in Saudi, and in the region in general.
Mm-hmm. And when I think about Egypt and I think about the broader Middle East, I do feel like there is this legacy of being business-minded, the traditions of the markets, bargaining, merchants, the souks and trading goods. But there's also this sort of really conservative mindset when it comes to money. And I think that's one of the things you tried to tap into. Why do you think there has been such a conservative mindset?
It's not a conservative mindset.
Or risk averse,
if you
perhaps.
ask anyone in this region, in the UAE, in Saudi, in Egypt, have you ever thought about the idea of partnering with one of your friends and doing a company? I'm 100% sure that 90% of the time they thought about it. Mm-hmm. There are two things that I think have been, I would say, preventing this region from delivering on this or having this more evident in our economy than the US, for example. First one is, no one taught us at schools how to manage our money and the benefits of investing.
I'll tell you, they don't do that in the States either. They don't do that enough anywhere.
Then the other thing is content creation capabilities, which addresses the first thing that I talked about. Because if I had to wait for the government to completely revamp our education curriculum, it would have been more challenging for us. But right now, access to produce content is actually very, very democratized.
It's democratized, absolutely.
And we always say this at Thndr. We call ourselves a code and content company. A code, which is our technology app. We will always make it as pleasant of an experience, but we're also a content.
And you partner with a lot of creators. How do you find these creators? How does that aspect of it work? Finding the storytellers.
It goes back to this code and content. So I have this idea that I'm going to treat creators the same way I treat engineers.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
This is very, very important lesson to any company right now, that having a media, I would say, strategy, and I always, people think I take it too far when I say that you have to have an in-house media team at your company, but at least let us at least have a media strategy, and then the same delicacy and the same effort you put in when you deal with engineers, you will have to do it with creators as well. So this is one. And two is, especially in a market, or if you are offering not a straightforward, impulsive product, then I would always go for hiring top-notch creators who know nothing about the finance and the financial markets world. Teach them about this, because if we believe that it is for everyone, then if we are not able to teach our team,
Then how can you teach the public?
yeah. So we go for top-notch creators and we give them the same space that we give to the engineers. And I think it's also very important because they represent everyday individuals. They know how to tell a story, and then we give them the space.
Because I think a lot of times when you have financial experts trying to explain concepts, they're experts. So for them, they're just going to explain it
100%.
oftentimes the way they've learned it, which is very different from how an ordinary person would
It
be able to
has
consume
been
it.
our
Right?
strategy since day one. We teach them how important it is, and then they see it, they believe in it, and then they join us on this mission to teach everyone to invest. Like I always say that, like you talked about what we do with creators. Like any collaboration that we have done with a creator over the last 5 years, it had to start with a learn session. Also, this idea of I will do my best to educate you about investing. I will also educate you about what not to say and what not to promise. But then when it comes to creativity, how you tell the story, how you build your content, you are the expert. You have the space to do it.
Very cool.
I think this has been working for us.
Yeah, and that authenticity. If the audience can feel like this is real and they're not just being paid to read a script, I think people can discern that now. We've all spent so many years online. We can kind of tell if something is scripted.
100%. 100. Everyone is very excited about influencers marketing, and I think it is the right way to market your product because it's real.
It's real. It has to be real.
This is billboards and TV ads. But the moment influencers marketing lose the authenticity, how real, then it's another wasted opportunity. Our job is to give you the means to have more financial power in order to achieve whatever makes you more satisfied with your life.
Talking about the emotional aspect of investing, do you see a lot of emotional investing happening among retail investors in Egypt and the Arab world? And what do you think are the biggest dangers of that and the FOMO mindset?
Everyone is cheering about the fact that everyday individuals' contribution to investing is on the rise. And like these are all the articles about the retail participation in the market. And when you talk about emotional investing, there are two aspects to it. There is this aspect where when you introduce the service to everyday individuals, you need to start building for those everyday individuals. And whether we like it or not, as an everyday individual, I would want to make money, but I also want to invest in things that I relate to. This is what I call emotion. Like this is a big part of emotional investing that we need to take into account, whether on the stories, what the company stands for, what the company is trying to achieve, and so on and so forth. But then there is another aspect, which is the FOMO piece, or like what you said. And it's a very simple lesson that we need to teach people. And we always say that only those who are able to not to be greedy when the market is up and not to panic when the market is down are the ones who make money. It's a very simple task. And having said this, to be honest, if I talk about our experiment or our business in Egypt, this has been the case over the last 2 years. Like whenever there is a big geopolitical situation where the markets are down, users' deposits in Thndr have been on the rise, which means people are now more and more aware that these are good opportunities. I have this example that we talk about. Like last year, one of the data centers downtown was on fire, and internet was down in Egypt for I would say like for a night or like a couple of hours, and everyone panicked. To the extent that the stock market the second day closed. This is how big it
closed. Wow.
And then the day after, the company that owns all of these data centers, the telecom company, it went up 4%. Why? Because people knew this is a strategically very important company. And actually, this takes me to the ethos of what we're doing and why we started. And this has been my pitch to the regulators since day one, and they believe in it. It's so important to have depth within your people. It's so important that the bigger chunk of investors in your market are your people. Otherwise, you're so vulnerable to whatever is happening in the world.
So your numbers are also quite incredible in terms of that growth story. In 2021, your annual revenue, Thndr's annual revenue was $120,000. Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
By 2024, 3 years later, it was $8 million.
Yeah.
You went from a small startup to a market leader, right? What were some of the most important decisions you made in that time to get to the point?
It's going back to basics. It's understanding our users. And one thing that we've learned over the past 4 years And I would love to actually share this learning for whoever is building an investment platform for individuals, that there are two very distinct use cases of Thunder in general. And a very big mistake that we've done during our first years was to build for an average user, which is the average of both. So when it comes to engagement, when it comes to the ask, it's as if there is one use case, more or less. And we've
And that's
always
not the
thought,
case.
and I was actually sharing this insight with the MONIIFY team, is the moment you understand that these are not the same journey or the same path. As a lifestyle investor, I don't want to be a trader. My evolution is not for me to start reading advanced charts and candlesticks and so on. My evolution is I want to continue to generate wealth on the site. I want to do 3 workouts in a class, have more physical fitness on the side of what I'm doing. My intention is not to become a full-time athlete. My intention is not to become a full-time trader. The moment we understood this, the moment it was so straightforward for us to double down on traders, build advanced tools for them, give them more. The
They're
moment
two
we
very different
started
profiles,
doubling
yeah.
down on these 2 profiles, the moment we started doubling our market share when it comes to traders, and alhamdulillah, being able to offer the right product to our users. And we launched this in our keynote event. We've grew our assets under custody. Assets under custody are the current portfolios of our users to $1 billion in May 2026. And like all of these $1 billion invested in local markets.
People go into founding a company for a mix of reasons. What are the 3 you see the most?
As a startup and as a tech company, you are, I would say, mandated to solve problems that are deemed to be impossible. And the tools that you have are the technology, the content creation, now the AI to solve problems that have been labeled as impossible to change within the current business models. Accordingly, by default, it's a very stressful experience. And I always say this to founders, the most difficult part about founding a company is if what you're trying to solve is obvious and the solution is obvious, there is nothing. Everyone is doing it because it's obvious. You need to be able to identify a huge problem that everyone is skeptical about solving and then being able to solve it, which is so hard to achieve, because at the end of the day, there is a fine line between you being stubborn and believer in the impact of what you're doing. And I think this is one of the things that I always discuss, why being an entrepreneur should be your end goal. It's a great mean to have impact and to have a fulfilling career. Founding a startup should never be your goal. You do it when there is a huge problem that you see, that you're obsessed with. There is no good companies that would treat you as an entrepreneur, that would give you the space to actually have the impact and solve this problem, that you can join and be part of. If this is the case, then you do a startup. And again, if you would allow me, because I always say that and I would love to use this cadence to actually reiterate it, there are 3 common reasons why you would do your own startup. Reason number 1 is I want to have space to make decisions. Like I like it. I feel that I am very limited in where I am. The answer is not to do a startup. The answer is to join a company that would give you the space to learn, to make mistakes, to do better, and to have an impact. And this is why I always say, guys, in interviews, it's not a one-way conversation. Like, ask questions. I understood the value of having a very ambitious manager, because if you have a very ambitious manager, you're going to grow with. Try to figure out how you can grow within your company, or look for another company that would give you the space to grow. It's not worth it to do a startup if this. The other reason is I've seen founders making so much money, and I want to make so much money,
Classic.
which is also not the right reason. The fact of the matter, I would say 1 to 2% of the founders would make it. 98% of the founders would have made much more money if they worked in companies than founding their own startups. And not to mention that they need to spend a lot of money on getting healed from the consequences of doing your own startup. And actually, what you guys are always saying and what we say, if the answer is to make money, there are means to be part of successful and exciting companies. Like back in the days, if you want to start, if you believe in dairy, if you believe in AI, for example, the only way to have exposure to this is to start an AI company. Right now, with the press of a button, you can be part of an AI company, and all of these guys would be working for you. So if the answer is to make money, if the goal is to make money, it's not by doing your own company, it's actually by investing. It's very simple. And then the third reason is I'm obsessed with this problem.
That was you.
The flywheel of this region is broken. The capital formation is broken. There is limited innovation in this region because people are not saving. So there is no enough capital to finance innovation in this region. And innovators have no access to those funds. It's very simple. In our region, people are spending like there is no tomorrow, are drowning in debt, which is very limiting for any generation, as opposed to a forward-looking, goal-oriented investing generation, and where the money is being channeled to finance projects, companies, ideas, entrepreneurs, or founders, athletes in this region. More jobs are created, more economic activity, more exports, less imports, more money to finance more innovation. This is a problem labeled as impossible to solve, because at the end of the day, I'm telling everyone that this region deserves a portion of your net worth. I'm telling this region that my biggest competitor is all of those people who are convincing you to spend and buy stuff that you don't need, and like to fit in, you need to do this and buy this and that. And me respecting and believing in this region. If this is a problem that you want to solve and no one is solving it, and instead I would say the majority are contributing to the problem, then it is worth all the mental stress that you will get from trying to solve it.
Well, what about your own mental health? Has that been a casualty of this process?
100%, yani. It has been, but I've learned a lot. Yani. And one thing that I have been very, very strong about, I haven't yet succeeded at, is actually pushing my leadership team to do therapy, because I also think therapy is very much like investing. Investing only works out when you invest when you don't need the money. When you start investing when you don't need the money, whenever you will need the money, you will find it in place for you to support you. If you need the money and you start investing, most probably you're not gonna be able to benefit from it. Therapy is the same. You start therapy when you don't need it, and hopefully by the time you need it, it actually works out. I would love for my team to start prioritizing mental well-being before they need it, and then they are ready to. But it has been definitely has been very, very difficult. But I'm learning to do it, and I'm very keen on making sure that it is not the price that my team would pay in order to deliver on our goals. And I promise you, Anna, 2021, 2022, I've been reading about Maksab doing this fundraising round, Swivel doing SPAC and so on. And it used to like, when are we doing this? And like, I always had this idea, if we do this fundraising round, a similar fundraising round, I would be very, very happy and it will pay off. And then the fundraising round happens and it's a void. It's not what is going to make you happy. I swear, wallahi, what would make you happy is meeting someone, or like actually getting a comment from one of our users. This is a very cool story that I want to say, if you would allow me. One of the things that we found as a problem is that females or women only represent 3% of our users back in 2021.
Wow.
So this was back in 2021, which made no sense for us. If we're saying everyone should be investing, we should seeing 50-50. Not to mention, if women are investing, most probably the next generation will be investors. They're very simple. So we started doing this Mind the Gap campaign, because it's very simple. If you go into a restaurant and it's all men, then you will make an assumption this is an all men club, right? But if you start seeing similar, relevant other women investing, then you start believing that it is in for you.
Absolutely.
So we met a single mom in Port Said to open an investment account, to start saving. So when her boy is 17 or 16, she sends him to Germany to learn robotics. And then they told her that there's a minimum account, so she didn't end up investing. She knew about Thndr and she started investing with us. I've always been saying like success means people investing with us and being able to do more and achieving their plans. So I had an interview in I think like a couple of months ago with Lamis Al-Hadidi, and I mentioned her story again. Like I love her story. And also now 12% of our investors are women, but it's also still embarrassing to be honest. But like it's a good.
But it's
it's a
4
good
times what it was
representation.
at the start.
And
So
then,
that's something.
And then she commented on the video, "Thank you for always remembering to tell my story. My son is actually now, I sent him abroad. He is studying computer science, and she would have loved to have a similar product like us when she was younger. And her son has an account with us on Thndr."
So there you go. Your thesis was proven.
100%. This is why we're here.
That's really special.
These are the stories where I think it's worth it to invest.
All right, Ahmad Hammouda, we could talk about this all day. We had hours more of this conversation. We've got to wrap it. Thank you so much for being with us. I loved this conversation, and good luck with all your future endeavors.
Thank you for having me. And like, to be honest, thank you, MONIIFY, for being a partner in actually educating and building this financial awareness. I really, and as a team, we appreciate all your efforts.
Right back at you.
We see it.
It's a shared mission, man.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.